If I have the original cos graph, the original cos graph is given by y equals cos x. So let's get some kind of x's going over here. We want to put the original cos graph over here. And then we want to do a bit of transformations on the cosine graph. Now the original cosine graph will have important points very similar to the sine graph. So the cosine graph would normally start from 1 and it would cut and turn back. It'll cut and turn at -1. So that's going to go down like that. So like that. And so boom. Just a little bit more down. Trying to make it into a really perfect bell shape if possible. And this is the lowest point, which is -1. Okay, so I'm just going to put the -1. That's the highest point for this cosine graph, which is +1. That's my x-axis and that's my y-axis. Now, my original graph of cos is y is equal to cos x, and that's what this is. That's the same as y equals 1 cos 1x plus 0, which means that my amplitude for this graph is going to be 1. That's how high we go from the central point. So that number there, that 1, remember, is how high we go from the central point of our sine and cosine graph. That's that number there. The next one is 1, which is next to x. Now the 1 that's next to the x, we always take 360 degrees and divide it by that, because that's going to be the period of our graph. That's how long it takes to make one full cycle. So if we want to get to 360 degrees, to get one full cycle, that's how long it'll take. Okay? Now, I got cos 1x, and I can see that that's going to be my period, which is 360 degrees. Let's keep it in a single color so that we can, once we transform it, change it into that. Halfway over here, I end up at 180 degrees. A quarter way, I end up at 90 degrees. And over here, I end up at 270 degrees. Now, remember, I'm not shifting this up, but this is normally the central point. This is the axis, and the axis is at 0. So that we can see the axis is at 0. And that's where 0 comes from. Let's get a transformed version of this. We got y is equal to, let's make it 2 cos, and let's make it also half x, like the previous example, and let's plus a half. Okay? So let's just plus 1. It's not complicated too much just yet. So let's plus 1. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start from this side, on the right-hand side here, and that is going to be my new central axis, x-axis, you can call it. All right. So that means that's going to be the new point where the new graph is going to cycle around. The next thing I look at is the 2. And I say, okay, well, the 2 is my amplitude. It's how far it moves up and down from the central space. So this is my central space. I'm going to plus 2 to get to 3. And I'm going to minus 2 to get to -1. Let's put dotted lines for this. Okay. This is my amplitude. So I do that second. Amplitude plus 2. So that's 2. Then this is going to be 3. So that's going to be my upper part of this graph. And then -2 would be at the bottom there. Now, obviously, it's not really to scale. Ideally, 3 would be a little higher than that. So that would be 2. And 3 would actually be somewhere like there at the top. Okay, so we don't really have that much space. So I'm going to just use as high as I can. So that's going to be there, over there. That's the number 3. So So that's plus 2 that way, and plus 2 and minus 2 this way. So the graph is going to be in this region. Okay. Right. Now that I know this graph is going to be in the region, I can look at the half now. I take 360 degrees and I divide it by a half, which is 720 degrees. So that means this is 360. It's going to finish at 720. So let's say that's over here. And that means this is going to be halfway point over there. Now, analyzing this, the starting point of any cos graph normally starts at 1. In this case, it will start at 2 plus 1, which is 3. So it'll start over there. Remember, this is the central line that I'm working with. And it's going to go downwards. So we're going to start there. Let's get a few dots going. Let's get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots going. So we're going to have 1 over here. And it's going to go all the way down and cut at 180 degrees over there. It's going to turn at 360 degrees. 540 degrees, it's back at the central point. And then back at the starting point at 720 degrees, which is actually over there somewhere. Right? So the graph would do something like this. And that would be the new sketched version of this graph. All right, just using sketch, not drawn to scale. The graph has grown bigger and its axis has changed. Now we have done 3 transformations in one. You can do 1 transformation at a time if the question asks for that as well.